Hey guys, welcome to another video of Foxy Doxie. Today is going to be more of a maintenance video. What I'm doing basically is replacing the bilge pump inside the hull of Doxie with a new pump and also a new float switch. Now, Foxy Doxie basically has a long keel similar to this. So it is integral to the hull, so the hull goes right round the keel as opposed to the keel being bolted onto the bottom. It's a long keel like this as well. In the back of this keel section is an empty space, so water gathers there if it comes into the hull, because obviously it's the lowest point, and that's where the bilge pump is located. So as you can imagine, that's a pretty tight space to get down to, but there's a fairly good system that enables that to be accessed relatively easily. Basically it is a rod, steel rod, that protrudes down into that space with a T-bar at the bottom, on top of which the pump and the float switch are located. So without further ado, let's get that T-bar. I've actually got the T-bar out already, got it here at home, and going to work on that because I have to get the remnants of the old pump and float switch off, and also remove some bolts which have been on there for a long time by the looks of it, and will take a bit of persuading to get off. Anyway, let's not jabber on all day, let's get on with the work. So the rod holding the bilge pump and the floating switch are attached to this rod, which we've seen, which basically gets pushed down into the keel of the boat. So it's at the lowest point of the bilge. So the float switch obviously is there in case the water level rises, and turns on the pump automatically so long as everything is turned on and the pump is on the blue side. Those are the remnants of the previous instruments, or transducers, or pump, or whatever you want to call them, which basically perished. So I'm going to need to try and clear this mess up so we've got space for the new ones to be attached. I dipped it in fresh rainwater, not that that makes a difference, I just happen to have a bucket of it standing by, and have now let it dry in the sun. It's amazing how pitted it actually is. That's just corrosion and salt water eating into it over the years, I guess, but it still has a lot of structural integrity, even, another word for your vocabulary. So I'm going to spray a little bit of WD-40 on there, CRC, whatever it's called in your part of the world, just to see if these nuts and bolts might free up, but I suspect I might actually be hammering them and cutting them out and probably replacing anyway, but hey, let's try it anyway. Okay, so we'll give that a bit of a blast. And we'll let it sit for a while. I'll also do the other side as well. Okay, just turn it over, give that a blast. Okay, see what happens. Okay, well, it looks like the WD-40 is doing its work. It is starting to come loose. So that's a good sign. Just gently do those, just don't want to break them. Okay. Well, that was no mean achievement. We finally got this apart. Bit of percussive maintenance. Also a hacksaw to part those ones which, didn't want to give away. So anyway, I will go and get some new stainless steel screws, bolts and nuts, and some washers, and we'll start putting it back together again. Having basically damaged all those previous bolts, which I wouldn't trust now anyway, so I've been out and got some new ones. Here we have the water pump 360 gallons per hour, which is enough. And it also has the no flow back valve, which is that little thing there, pinches together if the water tries to come back down the pipe, basically. So I'm removing the pump from the actual base. This is basically the filter, which also doubles the mount. As you can see, the bolts coming through the bottom there. So I'll affix those, and simply then we will be clicking the pump unit on top of it. And oh, I've got a little helper. Look at that. Hey fella. They're not going to be very strong at turning screws and stuff, so you'll just have to watch. Yeah, sometimes I think the hardest part of the whole job is just opening the packages of the stuff that you need that you just got from the hardware store. So anyway, accomplished. I can go and have a drink now. No, I'm kidding. Onward. Okay, so I've got this bolted on now. Whoa, wherever it went. There it goes. And I did substitute the supplied nuts with self-locking nuts, so just to give it that little bit of extra security. Obviously, a vibrating motor could, loosen stuff, so just give it the best chance we've got. Anyway, now we should just be able to click the apparatus on, and that should be ready to go. There we go, one pump. And yeah, that's what it looks like in the horizontal. So when it gets down into the bilge, it'll be hanging down in this configuration. Okay, so now for the float switch. Okay, and here we have our float switch, which will activate the pump if, like in the toilet system, the float is risen. Because the water levels come up in the bilge, it will automatically turn on the pump. Now, because this item's about $55, $60 odd, 55, whatever it is, and the screws, bolts, etc., were probably about $5.95. I'd say this packaging will be a real challenge if it's commensurate with the value of the item inside. Let's have a look. Oh no, wait, I can do it with one hand. No tools required. Go figure. Anyway, here's the item, and here's the floaty thing. Okay, so floaty thing goes up and down, so that's always a plus. Now it's a matter of attaching it. And it looks like the designers of this were thinking, which I always love, because you sort of look like, okay, one bolt hole there, the other one's got to be underneath the float. That's going to be challenging. However, we are able to separate the two. Even though you could actually shift the first one into the bolt position and then secure the one that you can actually see. However, this makes life much easier. So, put that to one side. Right, so here we have the two contraptions, the switch and the actual pump itself. So wiring obviously has to be brought to the top, and I obviously need to get myself some watertight crimps and get that wired into the boat. Well, I sneaked out to the boat to get a few jobs done, and yeah, now I've got a thunderstorm right over top of me again, so anyway, we will hunker down and get on with what we're doing. Okay, back on Doxie. So I've got my little rod and pump and float switch. So we're going to have a look now to see what's going to be involved in getting it back into position and also wiring as well. So we lift the carpet, there we go, and lift the hatch, and that's where she's going to live, down there. You can actually see the old pump here, so which I've got to remove,
And there's also some bits down the bottom there which I need to try and get out as well. So a good game, good game. Right, so the old pump, you can see the filter down the bottom basically perished and just came apart as soon as I touched it almost. Interestingly, the wire connections are right down close to the pump, which means they're going to be underwater a lot of the time, so not ideal. So we'll obviously try and avoid that. There is a fair bit of cable on the new ones, so we should be able to bring the connections up well above any water line that may occur. Obviously electricity and water don't mix really well, or they mix exceptionally well and just short out. Anyway, there's a couple of floaties down there still, which I need to try and get out with the boat hook, I guess. Okay, so I've been fishing and I've got the old float switch out. I thought for what they cost, I might as well replace it. Just knowing that everything's brand new, and I managed to get this floaty thing out as well, which was on the end of a piece of rope. I'm assuming somebody dropped that down there just to soak up the bottom of the bilge that the pump didn't clear. So anyway, that's out of there now too. So the next thing I need to do basically is release that hose clamp, and then I would need to reattach it to my new pump. Hopefully everything matches up nicely. Okay, well, after a long partnership, I've convinced these two to separate, so then go their separate ways. Yeah, got to try and get the new one on here. Right, I've stretched out the cables from the pump and the switch, just taped them further up the rod so we don't lose them when I finally get this in there, which I'm not quite sure how it's going to work, but hey, you know, we'll do it by braille. Right, hose attached to new pump. So far so good. Okay, so hose connected. I've just done a dummy wire up basically, just briefly, just so I can make sure that the actual pump is working before I shove it down there and find out that it's not going. And yeah, anyway, it's easier to troubleshoot up here than down there. Let's give it a go. And expecting noise. Whoa, we like that noise. Alright, happy chappy. Alright, so what I've done now is I've taken this filter mechanism and I've turned it 90 degrees. Basically what I'm trying to achieve is to get this hose pointing sideways as opposed to across, which is, there isn't enough room down there basically. So let me just clip that on. Okay, so now basically the hose is coming out the side instead of coming out at a 90-degree angle in line with the float switch. So hopefully that'll get us down, because we've got to get between the fuel line and the side of the hull, which is not a lot of space. And this is the result I am looking for. Okay, well, that was a drama. The float came off the float switch. Took a while to fish that out. Then I had to try and lift up the bar so I could try and clip the float thing back on the float switch, which after a lot of jiggery pokery I did. Just got a jury rigged up at the moment just to check it's working. Also to get rid of a bit of this water that's in here, so not having been able to pump it out for a while. It's not too bad really, considering how much rain. And you can actually see the float switch now coming into view there. So yeah, she's nearly empty. Very good. Right, back to do the electric part now. It's a bit daunting. So I've got this three-way switch, which basically is manual to the left, which means I'll turn the pump on regardless and it'll go. The off is, well, surprisingly it's off, unsurprisingly maybe. And the auto side basically is going through the circuit of the auto float switch. So Generally when you leave the boat, you'll put it on auto. So if there is, big rain event and some water happens to get in, then it will pump itself out and keep itself dry. So yes, that's going to be today's challenge. And it looks dead easy, right? So I've basically decided I think I'm going to place the switch just here above the engine bay. It's close to the battery, close to the pump, and in the event that I need to get it going when I'm out on deck, I can just reach in from the cockpit and flick it on. So I just think that's probably the best place for it. So let's see how we go. I've let go the screws again on the T-bar, and so I've dragged it up as far as I can go, basically without fouling the switch on the fuel line and other bits and pieces down there. So I've just secured that here, just so I can reach the wires more comfortably when I need to join them together. I've managed to fish the wires out. So we've got a black and a brown here, which positive negative for the pump. Two greys there, which are basically the float switch wires, and to be honest, it's a switch, so it can go either way, so that's why they're the same color. So now it's a matter of looking at the diagram and just making sure I connect it correctly. This is my first attempt at doing something like this, using this kind of equipment. So I've got my crimping pliers, I've got my crimp. I've also got some shrink stuff, so you put that over the cable, and once we've crimped it together, we can heat this up, and it should shrink to waterproof the connection. And I'll be connecting it to that grey wire, which is hiding underneath there, in an effort not to let it fall back into the sump, into the bilge even. Okay, so I'm sure this is a trap for young players, so slide this on first, because obviously once you've got it crimped, you won't be able to get it on. So, and doing it one-handed is also very enjoyable. Anyway, just as an illustration. Okay, my first crimp, it seems to have worked. I'm going to try the sealer now and see if that works. Here we go. Okay, here we go. As you can see, it's shrunk down basically to envelop the crimp, and we're good for rejecting water. Yeah, just like I bought one. Look at that. Boom, boom. Okay, next. So that's our positive crimped to one side of the float switch. I'm now about to crimp the negative from the pump side. Okay, so it'll be negative to negative on the switch. So we'll just get these two blacks together here. All right, here we go. Melty time. Magic. Who doesn't like playing with fire, eh? Melting shit and burning shit. Right, now we've got the pump. The red or brown wire has now got to be joined to the red, which goes through the float switch. It also comes down to the pump. So for that, I've got this little doohickey here, which is basically the red wire runs through it, the brown wire terminates in there, and when I close it, that clamp should basically cut into the insulation and pass the current across. So let's see how that flies. Okay, so that's now bitten through. So we've got red and brown coming that end, and red going back to the switch the other way. Onward. Okay, so everything's together now. I'm just putting some cable ties on, and I'll secure them to the T-bar basically, so they don't get caught up in other stuff, and it's just I know where to go and find them. Anyway, let's tidy this lot up. Right, with a bit of luck, this should be the last time we need to have this hoisted up, so I'm going to drop the bar back into the bilge now and secure it. Much as we hate drilling into our boats, got to be done, right? So yeah, a bit of a chore. This fiberglass stuff is very strong, so very hard to cut out. Probably don't have the right tools, so I'm drilling and then sort of widening the holes. So onward. Right, one hole. Whew, that took a bit of doing. Anyway, the moment of truth. Here we are. Let's just feed the wires in. Oh, look at that. Boom! I'll just straighten that up when I screw it in. That looks like a bought one. It looks like it came with the boat. Well, later on I'll know it did come with the boat. Anyway, I'll stop rambling. I'm a bit exhausted. Okay, so the next lot of wiring now. Alrighty. So, on the back of the switch unit, we've got two wires coming out here. Those two go to the battery, directly to the battery. The three wires here, the white one goes directly to the float switch, and the black and the red go to the matching black and the red that go to the pump and also to the float switch. So let's get these all put together. Okay, I've got them all crimped now, all five. So now it's a matter of just melting the water sealer over the top. And then I guess we'll be due for the moment of truth, testing it to see if it works. Okay, so I've got the sealer over each of the crimps. Very hard to do one-handed. Anyway, you get the gist. I'll get on with the rest. My shaky hands. Okay, so wired that all up now. I've just loosely put it in the hole just so it's sitting somewhere. Now I need to go to the battery connection, which is this guy here. What I'll do is I'll undo this bolt and bolt that onto there. There is a fuse here, which is good, and I shouldn't shake the camera. Yeah, a lot of dust in here at the moment, even though I've got the vents open. There's also a fuse here as well, so we're pretty well covered as far as anything going wrong with blowing the system or anything. So let me just unbolt that and bolt that back on with the connector on. Alright, so we'll just tighten that guy up again. Nice. And socket wrenches, so satisfying. Right. Okay, wires all connected. Switch sort of in place, not tidied up yet. And we're expecting action down below. Down you guys. Okay, so the moment of truth. Oh, yes. Oh, look at these. It is pumping away like a good one. Okay, so disappointingly, they've used junk metal in the screws that they've provided. You can see one's broken off. So I'm going to source a few next time I go ashore and come back out and just replace those, but they'll just hold it in place for now at least anyway. And that is all going. Just going to tidy up these wires now with a bit of cable tie, just get them out of the way and away from the engine obviously too. Maybe give that a bit of a wipe down. Probably should have chucked a towel or something over it if I had one. Anyway, let's just finish the job. Well, that's that job done. Quite satisfied with that. It was quite satisfying. Learned a lot. So yeah, that's the thing about yachts, right? You're always learning to be a jack of all trades, and I'll be the first to put my hand up and say master of none. But anyway, we have a bilge pump that we can operate from a switch panel, which is good and makes me feel a whole lot safer.
Thanks for watching another Adventures of Foxy Doxie. As always, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you.